Hello there, people of the internet. This is an M1 Garand, or Garand, however it is you feel like pronouncing that. Go ahead and subscribe for the ping. There's how these are loaded. So what this is, it is a semi-auto, self-loading 30-06. It holds 8 rounds of ammunition. It was the U.S. main battle rifle in World War II, and that's what most people know this rifle from. It comes up very, very often in, say, video games, pop culture, media, etc., etc. And for the most part, that's basically all that people know about them. However, there's a huge controversy around the M1 Garand resolving around this little tiny location right here. This is the gas system of the M1 Garand. There's a big old piston. I'm trying to explain this nice and simply so people that aren't gun people can watch this video and comprehend. There's a big old piston that moves back and forth inside of this rifle upon firing, and just the gas pressure pushes the piston down, a spring pushes it back up. It's a very simple system. But the M1 Garand is designed specifically around M2 ball ammunition, and that is where the controversy comes from. The M1 ball ammunition was the previous form of 30-06 that was used by the United States military, and it resided around the time period where the Garand was also in existence. So a lot of people will say that the M1 Garand is actually designed around the M1 ball ammunition, which was a spicier version of 30-06, and the M2 ball was actually made for the range restrictions that the United States government was dealing with at the time. Normally 30-06, if we're talking about like modern made commercial ammo, it's going to fire a 150 grain bullet at about 3,000 feet per second, give or take, depending on brand and whatnot. However, M2 ball 30-06 from a full-length M1 Garand barrel like what we got right here, it fires that same 150 grain bullet at around 2,750 feet per second, but there's a lot of discrepancies there. Like, it can vary from batch to batch, it can vary based off the temperatures around you outside, but we're going to call it 2,750 feet per second. So it is a slower velocity round. That slower velocity translates to less gas pressure inside of the system of the M1 Garand, and that less gas pressure translates to less force impacted on the piston and less force of the actual system cycling inside of the rifle. Again, I'm trying to explain this as simply as possible for non-gun people that might potentially be watching. Now, if your firearm is rated to cycle at a specific rate, then if you exceed that rate with higher gas pressures, you might come into some problems. And we have literal, physical, documented slow speed footage showing that if you run commercial ammunition through an M1 Garand, it does in fact cycle it harder than if you were to run just regular M2 ball spec 30-06, which is what the gun is designed around. And if you run a gun harder than what it is designed to run, then you could potentially run into some issues. With these particular rifles, more often than not, you're going to run into a bent operating rod. A lot of people will tell you that you don't have to worry about that because the M1 Garand's tough enough and you can run commercial ammo through it all day long, and they've never had any problems, so no one else will ever have any problems either. I myself have bent an M1 Garand operating rod with commercial ammunition. It was federal 30-06 150 grain, and I fired probably about 250 rounds of it, and sure enough, the M1 Garand rod that I was running was bent to the point to where it caused binding and the gun seized up. So it definitely 100% is possible, but I have also seen other people out there run their M1 Garands without any problem with commercial ammunition. And I think it depends on the manufacturer. Metallurgy back in the 1940s, it was pretty good, but not great enough to be as consistent as what we have nowadays. So one M1 Garand from one company with its style of metal might be different than another M1 Garand from another company with its style of metal. Maybe one is just a little bit harder than the other, to the point to where that slightly higher pressure might potentially cause a problem. And I think that right there is likely why we have so much controversy, because there's people out there who can seem to run commercial 30-06 through their old school M1 Garand without any problems, without an updated gas system, and then there's others like myself who have had problems. And that controversy is normally created by people who have a one-of-one representation, and that is what they decided all of the other things are going to be rated to. Like this M1 Garand, because this one malfunctioned, they all malfunctioned. Or this M1 Garand, because it can run commercial ammo, means that they all can run commercial ammo, and that's just not the reality of the world that we live in. So whenever it comes to the running of commercial ammo through your M1 Garand, I would definitely recommend getting yourself an updated gas system. They're very, very easy to get, very, very easy to install. It's just this little plug right here. I can't actually show you guys anything about it because I don't want YouTube to freak out over some sort of modification rule that they have. But this little plug right here, it literally comes out, you take the old original one out, you put the new one in, and it's got, more often than not, it'll have an adjustment screw on it or just a little tiny gas vent in it. If you're using the ones that are not adjustable, those are adjusted specifically for commercial 150 grain bullets. Do not use anything else. Not unless you're positive that your particular M1 Garand will be able to run that particular ammunition. Otherwise, you're risking your operating rod bending. But most of the time, you're going to find them with a little screw adjustment to where you can adjust the amount of gas that comes out in these rifles. And that's fantastic until you swap to a different ammunition. Like, for example, this one right here is set up for commercial 150 grain ammunition. Well, in the event that I go out and get, say, M2 ball 30-06, now it's not going to cycle through this because it doesn't have enough gas pressure to be able to meet the requirements to make the rifle cycle. Or if I go out and get, say, 180 grain commercial ammo, I'm going to have to readjust this for that potentially greater gas pressure that might be inside the rifle, because the bullet's going to be moving slower, and who knows what kind of powders are going to be inside of that thing, and who knows where the pressure curve is going to be meeting inside the rifle. There's a lot of different factors that go into these things in terms of the amount of pressures that your rifle is going to be subjected to. Heck, you go out and you get 150 grain Federal and 150 grain, I don't know, something else, and they're both traveling at 3,000 feet per second, but they're using different powders with different pressure curves. Like, one might run flawlessly with your setup and the other might be undergassed by the time that the pressure curve reaches the end of the barrel, so you got to readjust your gas system. So there's a lot of readjusting with your gas system, to the point to where you basically run through your box of 30-06 trying to figure out what is and is not going to run effectively inside of your rifle, and it can be quite the headache. So there's a lot that goes into the gas systems of these rifles. Personally, I just say get M2 ball 30-06. It's really not that much more expensive than getting like actual commercial 30-06. Like, to the point to where commercial 30-06 is already quite expensive, and if you're already buying that, then odds are you can shell out the extra 10-15 cents for proper M1 Garand spec ammo, and then you know you're going to get an ammo that's going to run just fine inside of the rifle. So I don't think I have anything else to add on to this topic. I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to carry. Or everything that I wanted to cover. Whenever it comes to these rifles, it's not a one decision covers all of the guns, because it seems like the time period where these guns came out is directly dependent on how durable that they are. Like early M1 Garands, the metal seems to not be as hard. Like pre-World War II ones, I saw I think it was a 1938 production, and I saw testing on the metal in terms of the hardness compared to a Korean-produced M1 Garand, and just naturally the metallurgy on the M1 Garand from later years, 30 years into the future, is better, and you're probably going to have less of a chance of bending your operating rod on something like that in comparison to maybe earlier produced ones. The World War II ones, it all really depends on your manufacturer. It depends on, who actually made the gun, whether or not it was made on a Wednesday or a Friday or anything like that. There's a lot that goes into these rifles and the controversy behind them, to the point to where we can't just decide, hey, this is the proper answer and that's that, and everyone else is wrong. So there we go. Hopefully you learned a little lesson about the M1 Garand's gas system and the crippling controversy that goes around it. So thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. The description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garand. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.